Were Ollie, what was Ollie going to join the meeting? I think he said so.
Funny, the recording announcement came in German on my side.
Oh, did it? That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Why don't we, since we have such wonderful guests, well, let's start off real fast. I don't think there's a lot to say here. Kyle, I put a few updates about the Unwind FFI thing, basically to say that we are prepping an RFC and to propose creating the group. Basically the same thing we said last time. Yes, it's a revised and more limited one. And the main question was whether we wanted to do some sort of announcement, right? Or was there other questions on your mind?
I guess my question is just, is this RFC supposed to kind of be dual purpose in re-proposing extern C Unwind, or is this just an RFC for creating the group?
I think it should do both, personally. Because I think that's part of it, is like, we want to do this, and we want to do the follow-through, and they go together.
Okay. I'm not quite sure I see the point of doing the group proposal bit, just because, I mean, I guess, yeah, I'm wondering what that accomplishes or what it's supposed to do in that regard, because we have kind of the infrastructure for a group set up in the terms of having a Zulip chat and a repository. So I guess the only value I see is kind of the announcement value, that people who follow new RFCs can see it.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be together. My take was, we didn't necessarily want to do a partial solution unless we knew we were going forward, so it makes sense to sort of announce it. I like RFCs for announcement purposes. It makes it official that this is what we're going to do. You can point at it and say,
are we going to get a UCG?
Sounds like it doesn't have to have a lot of detail beyond pointing to the GitHub repo and the Zulip chat.
I think that's right.
The group has been formed, the group has made this RFC, feel free to join, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the status of my PR in that regard? Because I still think the current situation is rather sad, but it seems not much has moved on both the RFC and my... So to remind you, my PR is the one that basically just removes no unwind, the attribute, to like fix the basically UB that we currently have.
For the Rust part, ABI at least.
No, for Rust ABI, that's Felix's PR, which is blocked on Felix fixing CI, which I mean, like it's just excluding a bunch of platforms. I don't like. Seems Felix has not much time. Shouldn't be a lot of work. That one is uncontroversial, it seems. I mean, the one which also does it for all the other ABIs.
Yeah.
Speaking, is that Ralph Jung?
Yes, R is Ralph Jung. Yes.
Jung. Okay. You're talking about the PR for that's, I think, titled something like fixing abort logic, right?
Fix no unwind logic, yes. 63909.
So I would say, once I feel comfortable with the RSC, I think I would feel comfortable removing my control.
I mean,
I haven't yet caught up with the discussion. I'm like 200 emails behind.
Yeah.
I think so. I think what I would assume is that if we do land the RFC, we can go ahead and also we could implement the alternative ABI, right? And just sort of.
Right. This was meant to be something that we could land to like avoid having UB while we resolve this situation.
Right. But I think we've kind of agreed to resolve the situation pretty rapidly. So maybe it's not worth it.
Okay, well, I would be happy if that happened. It's just that I've heard this 2 or 3 times for this specific topic before, and it wasn't resolved pretty rapidly.
Right.
Yes,
I would. I mean, I know I'm not like a Lang team member, but my personal preference would be to just land 63909.
And then make changes.
I mean, first land Felix's thing. I will need to rebase, but yes.
I have no objection to landing 63909, but I also do feel like I'm not in the mood to entertain a long, like I think we've done enough RFC discussion around this C Unwind ABI basically, And so I would be inclined to move fairly quickly to FCP, and unless something new comes up,
Well, assuming the the text.
Yeah, I mean, we have to write the text, but like I just don't think we're gonna. I think we've covered the topic pretty thoroughly, is all I'm saying. I don't expect a lot more back and forth on that.
Yeah.
I guess my understanding is that 63909's the main drawback of landing it is that the main drawback that's not addressed by having a project group is that it takes out an optimization.
Yes.
Or is there a different drawback?
Well, some people argue it gives too much weight to people that exploit unspecified or UB behavior, which I do not think is a good argument, but other people do.
Because we're planning to move ahead with a well-defined way to do that, then we should be able to. My vote would be just merge it.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is basically we currently have. I mean, it's set on there. I don't want to start this discussion here right now. I think this is not a good time. I was just wondering if they were updated. I missed, but it seems they are not. So okay, no. Whatever. I will mostly move out of this discussion. It's been too frustrating.
It's okay.
Let's move to a different topic, maybe.
Yeah, let's move to a different topic. I think for this week, Kyle, let's you and I sync up and try to really make progress on the RFC, and we'll revisit this 63909 if we want to.
So let's jump to the static mute thingy, maybe.
Yeah, I think nothing else in here is particularly you all can peruse. There's no major changes. Which one did you want to jump to specifically?
Consider the deprecation of UV happy static mute.
This one, okay.
Yeah. So there are some different proposals. Just deprecating static mute entirely and removing it eventually with an addition or something, or doing it just for mutable reference bars and not bars, which is
so
basically
I need a little. So the basic concern here is that it's really hard to write like static mute as a global mutable variable, and it's pretty hard to do anything correct with it.
This was triggered by a bug in lazy static.
It looks like lazy static.
Where they used ampersand mute on a global variable and on a static mute that has static lifetime, and they used it in a way that violates aliasing uniqueness. Like they used the mutable thing, and then some other code ran that could access the thing, and then they used the old mutable reference again.
Yeah. Okay. And so your proposal, Ralph, was to say you can only get a raw pointer out of it. It's deprecated to use a non-raw borrow.
So to be fair, I have the stack borrows doesn't. I don't know what the stack borrow story for global for static is. It's currently certainly not the final version. But yes, this would avoid having long-lived mutable references.
Yeah.
Accidentally. I mean, if you have a raw pointer and you do ampersand mute star, you can still get arbitrary unbounded lifetimes. But that's how raw pointers behave everywhere. It's just trying to reduce this particular footgun. I don't know if it helps. It just
seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, in particular now that we have ampersand raw. And it seems less invasive than deprecating static mute outright, which some people were advocating for and are not opposed, but some people didn't like it. You would have to add unsafe cell in places, which is not bad, but well, it's not terribly necessary either.
Yeah, I would favor an RFC to do that deprecation. I think it seems like an RFC.
Yeah, probably has discussion. Yeah,
makes sense. Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone not favored that? Is there any other alternatives that are worth
Well, I mean, the three alternatives are basically doing nothing because it's not too bad and we haven't had tons of bugs. And I mean, we know unsafe code is dangerous. or doing my thing, or deprecating static mute entirely.
Yeah, okay.
Ralph's suggestions feels like a good compromise.
Not how widely used. Well, this is exactly why we would get out of an RFC, but yeah, I think it seems reasonable. So we could put that's
Yeah, I mean,
our preferred solution, and that
a whole bunch of people showed up that were more or less angry about like, oh, you want to remove static mute, this will make writing code impossible. And so like there's at least 3 explanations in the thread for 3 different people that didn't read the backlog, which is long to be fair, about why this doesn't make any existing code impossible. But clearly enough people think that it does, that there would be an outcry and like needs teaching and stuff. So
right.
I mean, to be clear, there is the existing code that it makes impossible, right, is just having static mutes, but with the same no alias behavior. Or are you saying you would just go through the raw pointer that you'd get from & raw mute and dereference that to get a mutable reference if you really wanted to do that?
I mean, if you really wanted to like have UB, you can still have it, yes.
I mean, but it's not. It's not always UB to have a no alias annotation, right, on like static mute data, right? So long as you discard the mutable reference and don't use it again after someone, right?
Yeah, if the mutable reference is unique from the time it's created until the time it's used the last time, everything is okay. The rules are the same for all of them.
Right.
And I'm not entirely sure if the lazy static bug would have been prevented. Like if they had used raw pointers instead of mutable references. It's not clear to me, because if you create a raw pointer to a local, and then you use the local directly, and then you use the raw pointer again, that is UB, because by using the local directly, you assert the uniqueness of the local itself, of the place directly. So it's not clear that the lazy static UB would have been prevented by them using raw pointers instead of mutable references.
Is that Ralph? You just made an assertion there that like, have we said that that's UB?
Oh, I'm describing stack borrows as it is right now.
Right. Okay. I understand. I understand that that's not allowed under.
It falls very natural out of these rules and would require very special magic treatment to avoid.
Yeah.
So for currently, stack borrows doesn't say anything about parallel threads, right? So there's
parallel threads, no.
So like there is this
but I
question.
think it's orthogonal because it's racist.
Well. It's somewhat orthogonal. I mean, when in the current code, you take a mutable borrow and coerce it to a raw pointer, right? If you want to get a star mute pointing at a static mute, which is, I think, what most people want.
Yep.
And the whole point of the & raw mute thing was to avoid this like momentary reference that puts stronger requirements than you might want, right?
No. The point is that people actually don't do that. People do & mute of the static and then use that reference several times because it works, and it's a very long-lived reference.
Yeah, I get it. So that's one bad way, but it's also true that you're temporarily asserting uniqueness for a moment, right? Yeah, it's probably a moot point, but it just could be not what you wanted to do.
I mean, under static borrows, you're not asserting uniqueness until you use it, right?
The act of borrowing it.
Reference.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But you're then giving it up, or you're then turning it to a raw pointer, right?
Yes. I mean, this is like this is an interesting question. What happens if 2 threads do this in parallel?
It's just outside of the scope.
Currently, the second thread would kill the first thread's raw pointer if we enabled full tracking for raw pointers, which currently we don't.
Yes, this is my point. Anyway, I think Ralph's proposal seems good to me.
References,
so it seems like we all basically favor this.
Probably static mute should have special treatment for stack borrows to not have any uniqueness assumptions, because that seems like a thing we don't want until you explicitly write & mute somewhere, but not by default.
Yes. So it seems like we would say what would come out of this meeting is, does anyone not like Ralph's middle ground proposal? We would want an RFC, some reasons to deprecate. We don't know that this would solve the lazy static bug. However,
it's a speed bump.
Right, but it introduces a speed bump, and it avoids what error-prone
accidental creation of long-lived mediate
Yeah.
references.
Yeah, and it makes it harder to create a mute reference that lives.
I mean, static mute is like static in C, so like you should play by C rules and use raw pointers, and then everything works like it does in C. Or mostly it doesn't work, but okay, that's
yeah,
that's C.
Okay.
So, do you want to make that into a comment?
Yeah, I'm wondering who wants to write that comment. I can write it.
Yeah, since you wrote this.
Sure.
Let's see.
These probably got done. I didn't go and check. I'll check it later. Okay. Should we move on to incorrect undefined behavior on static references created from pointers?
Yeah, I suppose.
Oh man, what is that? I need to page it back in. It says my name on it. I should know about it.
Yeah, we want you. It's a nice intersection of const evaluation and.
Oh my god, yeah.
So I think the problem was raw pointer, random integers, hard coded, becoming pointers. Currently give some sort of error.
Right, the background is that we currently check the value of const and statics items to make sense for the given type. This is something that Ollie started and I also worked on around when Miri took over CTFE. And it's as strict as we could make it, well, within reason. I mean, we think reason, whatever other people think about it. So it traverses your type and like goes into the enums and to the struct fields and so on, and like make sure that your booleans are booleans and all of those things. And it also makes sure that your references are actually, unless it's a ZST, are actually references to memory that you allocated during const eval, and not just like 15. Except that embedded people like to have like 15 as their pointers. And of course, like for runtime, it's completely fine to have these references, but we are extra strict here because those, so the biggest problem is promotion, as always. Implicit promotion, when you have like ampersand something, something, something in a function and the compiler decides that something, something, something could be computed at compile time to get the ampersand static lifetime. And we need to be really sure when we do that, that we'll, when we const eval that code, there won't be an error. Because if there is an error, we screwed up bad, because this was code that worked, like we broke the user's code. The code would have compiled fine and probably run fine at runtime. But we decided to wait compile time, and then program doesn't compile and user is frustrated. Since const and static items might or might not currently and in the future and so on flow into this, we are extremely conservative with what we allow there. That said, we are probably never gonna want to allow dereferencing a pointer in things we promote. That seems like asking for way too much trouble. I already think we are promoting way too much. I've been promoting a more explicit mechanism that you could write syntax, like I don't know, const curly brace something something something.
I'd like that.
Closing curly. To ask for promotion, get a compile time error if your thing doesn't promote, so you know you get the static lifetime. And also, if it then errors because the const eval doesn't work, well, I mean, you asked for it, so it's your fault and you can fix it.
So hold on, back up. So the reason, just to make sure I'm following you.
Yeah, there's a bunch of context here, I'm sorry.
The reason that it matters if we're going to allow dereferencing a pointer inside a promoted constant is precisely that if we accepted like 0.15 as ampersand U32 or whatever, now we would never be able to dereference it.
Right. If another user in this embedded platform has this GPL pointer, which is some integer cast to a pointer, and then they somewhere write ampersand and then a bunch of code which involves dereferencing this pointer, and we would look at that code and be like, oh, we can const promote this because surely they want the static lifetime here, and then we const eval it and it dereferences this integer pointer, and const eval is like, no, you can't dereference 15. I don't know what's there. And then you get an error. And the user is like, but I didn't want you to const eval it. I wanted to like read address 15 at runtime, and I actually know there's something there because embedded.
So there's something like this, which, if I remember from the days when I used to write games on DOS, oh, it's in the paper. What's the address?
I'm seeing. Yes.
I don't know, something like that. And then you're saying, and somebody later on writes like let x equals.
Oh, I can't type here. Yes, ampersand, and well, that would be. Yeah,
that's
that would
not
be
a great
extra
example,
version.
but yeah.
But like maybe 2 plus display memory or something. I don't know, for some reason.
Sure.
And we decide we really want to promote this, which we normally actually could if this would be a normal constant, because we know it's a shared reference to a frozen thing. Like we know this is not going to change, except that this is a weird constant.
Yeah. And I think we don't know necessarily the value of the constant when we choose to promote, right? Or do we? I forget.
We do look into it. We do all sorts of crazy things. Ollie knows the details. But we do look into the value to look for drop stuff.
I think we probably would prefer to look as little as possible, though, long term.
Yeah, but the problem is that we already do look into the value and so for backwards compatibility.
That ship has sailed.
I'm aware of that.
Yes. very, very sadly, a whole bunch of reasonable ships are long gone here.
Yeah. I think we could, we could sort of track the provenance of pointers in constant val. So if we see an integer to pointer cast, we could forever mark dereferencing that as not promotable.
I would just, that seems way too complicated. I would just never promote the references of anything, because currently we don't. Let's just not ever do that.
I mean, so Ralph, I have a question about this specific use case, and maybe this is too in the weeds, but like, when would it be correct to have a static ampersand reference to it if like a fixed address thing that you're reading? Like, is that a reasonable thing to do?
I mean, this would have to be memory that doesn't ever change, right? Because it's a read-only reference.
Do you have display memory that doesn't change? Like, because like the place that I normally see these like sorts of fixed address stuff is like MMIO, right? Which definitely changes, and you probably want behind like a volatile cell or something like it, right?
Right. The real thing is ampersand register block, which I don't know what that is, but it's probably unsafe cells in there.
Right, which wouldn't come promote either because it has unsafe cell in it, right? It wouldn't be frozen.
Well, with unsafe, so it wouldn't be. Well, it would be less incorrect.
Okay.
Because
all right.
like with unsafe cell, it's okay if it changes. It's still wrong in an unfixable way because it's a reference, so the compiler may insert spurious reads and writes. You can never have references to.
That's the whole. That was the separate conversation that I started about whether volatile location can have spurious reads, right?
Right, but we can have a type which opts out of the dereference output. Ignoring that with an unsafe cell or with a cell, this is okay.
So,
I mean, you have to make all your reads volatile, obviously, because data races and stuff, but yeah.
It sounds like you're suggesting...
Oh, no, but then the star is still kind of weird because you're doing a non-volatile read from something that like could change under your feet. So it's kind of like a data race. But you could have external synchronization around this.
It wouldn't be a dereference, right? It would be a like dot, get on an unsafe cell recursively, which you're definitely not going to const eval, right?
Yeah, it seems very hard to imagine a scenario where this could even.
What was the actual example?
Reasonably happen. Well, the actual example is some types from some web reader I don't know.
Yeah.
Ampersand register block using LPC 17 something.
Okay.
But I think so my take on this is we should basically decide that we actually don't want to promote dereferences anyway. If we do that, we can weaken validity to be fine with these bad references. Because we're no longer relying on having them checked.
Yes, and you would propose, which I like, proposal is something like some kind of, this is kind of independent, but kind of not, some sort of explicit const promoted expression form.
Just so that people stop asking for things to be promoted.
Yes, anonymous constant. I mean, it also gives us a way to like slowly wind back, like over addition boundaries, for example. We can be like, we're no longer going to promote these things. We're going to request that you start writing const.
If you could stop promoting function calls, I would be much happier.
I don't know how much we'll be able to do, but
there's not many we currently promote, but there are some.
I think that const block is helpful in other situations as well. Like we could have that in match patterns or in patterns or something like that.
I mean, it is worthwhile pointing out that then you hit the issue that everybody's trying to mark every block and every expression they can const so as not to miss out on some optimization, right? Which is sort of
okay. So we have to like
there's a list of annoying C++ like patterns like this, right, where you just are supposed to declare a million things in order to actually get.
But I mean, this is a cargo cult, right? This is because this is not about optimizations.
Yeah, LVM will optimize this for sure anyway. So.
I mean, LVM shouldn't optimize that dereference, otherwise we'd have.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's 20.
I mean.
So, I mean, I think this seems like a fine proposal. What I'm a little bit, how would we like decide that? Like, this kind of gets to the question of the const evaluation story and how it is evolving and integrating into LangTeam. But like, is there somewhere where there's like notes on the current status and we can kind of add this in and be narrowing down the uncertainty until the rules are relatively fixed? You see what I'm asking? Like where would we log this decision, I guess is the question.
I mean, ultimately, this would need an RFC, right?
I think so. But I assume this is like an in-progress design, and it feels like we would want to be able to say, we decided this thing, at least informally.
I mean, I would be happy if there would be design about promotion, but there isn't.
Okay.
Like promotion, there was an initial RFC which like kickstarted it, and ever since then, it's just been anytime a new language feature was added, people thinking, is there a way we could possibly soundly promote this? And if Eddie B was clever enough to come up with one, and unfortunately he's really clever, then we started promoting it. So we are promoting way too many things, and this didn't happen this didn't happen with design. This was just like, with the current checking infrastructure and with the current everything, can we convince ourselves that promoting this is okay and can be implemented reasonably? And unfortunately, that resulted in completely arcane behavior dictated by like the way the checking worked. And now a bunch of things are promoted that I don't think should ever have been promoted. And they were never RFC to be promoted. They're just like, oh yeah, let's just add this to the list.
So I'm thinking that, so right now we're making big waves with respect to like const safety, and I'm thinking about statics PRs. So maybe now is not the right time to make more waves.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think. I mean, ideally, we would have someone who is willing to do some design and like write an RFC, which hopefully has an explicit promotion mechanism and describes our current existing implicit promotion rules and all of that stuff. Some of it is well, basically work that should have happened but didn't, so it's catching up with like documenting status quo, and some of it is then like designing a way forward.
Right.
I think we at least have rather successfully established a hiatus on promoting more things. At least most of the time, like we don't seem to be promoting more things recently, which is good.
So we recently rewrote all the promotion stuff, right? In fact, I think Ecstatic Morse didn't you do that?
Yeah,
it's in progress.
Not quite complete yet, but basically validating const bodies. So what operations are legal within a const fun or a const or static body was intertwined with what we are promoting and propagating these, like whether this enum variant that's currently stored in this local actually needs drop called on it and all this stuff. So validation has been split out, and the stuff that tracks needs drop and whether something is a cell or not has also been split out.
Which interestingly was actually a breaking change for Fuchsia.
Did that break Fuchsia?
Yeah.
Did you get the special?
There was some hacky code that referred to an associated type as a means of lazily causing whether or not it referred to that non-well-formed associated type would trigger a const eval error.
Oh my god, you guys are creative.
We started evaling it more aggressively. We triggered the const eval error sooner.
Oh.
This is a really hacky static assert.
I don't want to know about that. Well, what I was wondering is whether that meant that you felt like you could actually start to document the status quo.
Yeah, I think I have a fairly good understanding of the status quo, although it was my impression that we might try and promote derefs currently, which is not true.
What?
Ralph?
I mean, I have been promised by Eddie and Ollie that we don't. I can't read that.
Yeah, it's going to get better.
Okay.
But yeah, I had a similar reaction upon first entering that part of the code base.
You're not the only one who can't read Eddie's code.
There's a few contexts in which we try and do promotion. Taking a reference to something is one of them. And then there's also using something as part of an array initializer and then passing something to intrinsics like SIMD shuffle, where it like really needs something to be const, sort of as a workaround for the absence of const generics. And then so that is, as far as I could tell, not fully documented, so we should probably do that.
Yeah.
And then there's the list of operations which are allowed to be promoted.
I think it would be amazing if we could start to document the current rules.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the array initializer is an interesting one because people started to ask for more things to be promoted specifically for them to be used in array initializers.
Right.
So we're talking about MyRC right now.
Yes, the one with a const. Yes,
Yeah.
where you can const eval array initializers if they're non-copy. And it seems like this might be a place where we have two sets of promotion rules. We have one set of promotion rules that we apply in runtime functions, and another set that we apply in const items. They're not the same rules. Because in const items, the user asked for it being const eval, so we can more aggressively promote.
If we do the more general value-based reasoning for array repeat expressions, then we might not have the problem around promotion.
I have no idea what you mean.
So there was the question of allowing runtime, not just const expressions.
Okay. Well, so that would invalidate some of the.
So it's time check. It's 3:40 in my local time anyway. It's 40 minutes past the hour, and I don't know, maybe some of you are on a half-hour base time zone. That wouldn't help you. Anyway, sorry. The thing, we are 40 minutes into the meeting, and we have 20 minutes remaining. And I feel like we kind of got I feel like we're done with this, and I wanted to check what we should discuss next. But
okay.
We could go through some of these issues, or the one thing I would like to raise up is like, can we sort of establish const generics like some regular time?
I don't think this has
really check back in and track this sort of thing.
It doesn't feel very related to const generics. I mean, the only part about const generics that is important is that you must provide a const. Yeah.
You're saying that const promotion and const evaluation don't feel very related, or const generics specifically?
The const generics.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, but yes, I think that would be a good idea because we do need to discuss this stuff, but I'm new here, so someone else needs to set that up.
What I'm going to do now...
I think Ecstatic Moors, Ralph, Ollie, Eddie B, maybe me. would be a good set of people.
Yes. I think that
And
would
then
be great.
and then there are some people who are generally interested in having more things
I don't know where to write
because,
this down.
like fixing the Islam library and stuff.
Yeah, so the main people who are currently involved, Ecstatic Morse, Ralph, Ali, Central. Eddie really claims that he's not, but that's okay. We're going to put him on there anyway. But every time I try to trap Eddie into something, they wiggle away. He's like, oh, anyway. He said something funny. I'm trying to remember what it was. Something like, all I did was reinvent these two wheels, which were like two super complex, amazing things. So, I mean, this kind of like ties in with what we were saying earlier, Ralph, about the unsafe code. Like, how should we try to? I would basically like to have some insight into what you all think are important and what you're working on, and bring it back here from time to time. And I think things like documenting these rules would be awesome. I don't know how to do those updates. I'm happy to, if you all want to show up every week and give them, that's even, or just irregularly every so often, that works for me.
So I'm thinking that since Ecstatic Morse is doing most of the implementation work right now, they might be best placed to give some like brief updates or something.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. We also have a PR open in const.
Good.
We have a PR open in const eval about. I mean, as you know, one of my pet peeves is terminology. I'm a researcher. So there's a bunch of very confusing terminology as well, because promotion, when you talk with Eddie B, there's at least 3 different things that he calls promotion.
Oh, yeah.
So that took me a long while to realize why I was so confused, was because every time I said promotion, it didn't mean the same thing as what I said it earlier.
Yeah.
So we are trying, this is a PR 27-ish or something. I mean, there's not that many PRs. There's one PR. Where the reason it's not merged yet is that we are trying to agree on some terminology.
I think we sort of got there, though.
It's a good reason.
Well, I mean, nobody responded to my last statement yet. So maybe that's something for this meeting. I don't know.
Yeah. I think so. My point was going to be that for any const evaluation project group, there's sort of 2 projects, and one is the implementation work that I'm doing is specifically driving towards getting ifs and working in const bodies.
Yep.
But I think there's another separate thing, which is specification, because it's like he was saying, it's underspecified right now.
Does your work also include, well, not at the moment, but will it include loops?
Yes. It'll basically, once we finish, once the Eddie VPR with promotion getting split out is merged, it's just like flipping a flag, and yeah, it's very simple.
Nice. Yeah, so I think that makes sense. So like working on the implementation and then specifying things is also important in this respect, because we want to add a bunch of tests to like shore up the implementation, and if we reason about the spec, then it should be easier to write tests and vice versa.
Yeah. So I guess my question is there a comparable working group currently that like is doing what you would want the const evaluation people to do? Mm-hmm. So it's a weekly check-in, and
I feel like we're trying to get this up and going.
Yeah,
it's not something that's exactly working yet. I don't know if it has to be a weekly check-in also, but the FFI Unwind is a similar concept.
Okay.
And
I guess it's mostly like the Zulip, const eval Zulip, but there could be some updates to the line team.
Yeah.
And I think we also maybe want to start adding some stuff to the Roxy guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to like make this super stressful. So when you say weekly check-in, like if nothing happens, nothing happens. But it would be great to be like just knowing what's happening and being able to guide it. But like that seems important. That doesn't.
Okay.
We can discuss a little bit more over email or whatever. Because maybe we have, as long as we all agree on this as like the goal of figuring out how it should work, then it seems good.
Yeah.
The 15 minutes left, there are a few things.
The other thing that we wanted Ralph for was the
Yes.
which one was it?
Box T representation. It's using
Yes, that
FFI.
one. Yes.
Ralph, you said some subtle things here.
What? Sorry.
Clarify box T representation.
Oh, yeah. Well, FFI is one of those things which people keep asking me about, and like, just rewrite it all in Rust, and then you don't need FFI. No.
It's our official LangChain position.
Really?
Approved.
It'll be decades until we have formal methods to treat with to handle FFI. So I don't know anything about it. No. So the problem is this is the first so there was an FCP to say that boxT has the same API as &muti, and that passed, and that's very reasonable and stuff. But what this also is add an example for calling a C function, where on the Rust side the signature we give is a boxT.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, that would be like the first time we authoritatively say that that's a thing you can do, where the C side has a pointer, and on the Rust side we use a richer type. I know I've seen people advocate for using references instead of raw pointers on FFI types before. I don't think there was. I'm not sure if this is officially sanctioned anywhere, and I felt uneasy being the one to R+ the PR that sanctions this. And so, yeah, and the subtle thing that Gonzalo's GNC BG, I never know how to pronounce their nick, discovered is that you can actually have very crazy kind of UB if you're doing bad things with your FFI imports. Because what FFI imports are is like the same thing as declarations in C. And in C, it's UB if you have multiple declarations that have incompatible types. Incompatible is a bit unclear. But what this means in LLVM is if you declare a function multiple times and it is no alias in one case and not no alias in the other case, the no alias can like move over. So basically, the no alias that Rust adds to the FFI import can infect the C code that is imported if you do XLTO and compile this all together. So it's as if the C code had no alias, even though the C code doesn't, which might not, that's certainly very subtle. This means you can introduce UB into a program by just adding a declaration that you never call because it adds an attribute that breaks stuff, which is not even unsafe code. Lots of subtle weirdness.
That's sort of like a independent problem, right?
It is mostly independent. It's just that if we say people you have to use raw pointers for your FFI imports, then that's no problem because we don't add attributes. So it somehow interacts with no unwind, which I don't ask me about it.
What? It interacts with
well,
no
if we add no
unwind?
unwind, we're adding it to the C side as well. But yeah, I don't think this is a problem. But yeah, so yes, it's mostly orthogonal. And it seems like something we could either decide this is a problem we're going to have to solve eventually. Right now, we're not saying anything about it and go ahead with it. Or we could say we want to sidestep the problem, which we could try to do by mandating people to use raw pointers, but they already don't. So, nah. Or we could or we could add fewer attributes on FFI imports.
I was just gonna say we could also do that, right?
There's a lot of things you could do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my take is, well, we did already decide that it should have the same API. Is that correct or not?
Yes, but we didn't decide. There's no example anywhere saying that you can use &mute on FFI imports. At least I haven't found one. And I'm not an FFI expert, so I don't even know where to look for this. I don't know why I'm reviewing this PR.
I don't really understand what does &mute even have to do with this? I guess it's just like the transitive requirement. And like box is the same as ampersand mute, and ampersand mute is the same as a raw pointer. Therefore,
well, ampersand mute is not the same as a raw pointer, certainly in terms of no alias and stuff.
I mean,
but,
from ABI perspective.
Well, the niche is not the same, but yeah.
Because like there are no ampersand mutes here, is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to understand why that comes into play.
Well, but the point is, if there was an ampersand mute example already, then by transitivity, this example would be correct, and that would be a no-brainer.
Okay.
But there isn't. So this is, or maybe there is. Like, I would be happy if there is, and then I can just R+ referencing that, and then it's someone else's fault. But I didn't find one. And well, I looked in the reference doc, like the reference type, primitive type libstd documentation, which is where I would have expected it, and there's nothing there. And the Nomicon FFI chapter also, I think, doesn't. And then I didn't know where else to look. And the FFI export that I imported into the thread also didn't point to anything.
So maybe we should reassign this to Robin, maybe? Because I certainly shouldn't be assigned to this one.
Yeah, sorry, I was just like...
I do 0 FFI.
Well, see, that's about the same as I.
Actually, I did some FFI yesterday.
See, you're much more qualified than I am.
Yeah, but it wasn't extern C FFI. It was extern Rust FFI.
So
that's even harder. So you're definitely way more qualified.
So what? All right.
But it's in the compiler, so it's a bit like it's the same. We know it's the right ABI.
Seems like you're saying, Ralph, I understand. You're hesitant to document, or you think we should be hesitant to document this because...
Well, I am hesitant to document this because I don't feel I can make that call.
Right, but leaving that aside, we've kind of made this decision, but there are weird bugs that make this like more complex that we haven't resolved. Or there are weird behaviors.
The decision is just that Boxy is the same as ampersand muti, which means like Rust code can transmit them back and forth and things like that.
Right.
Which is completely orthogonal to FFI, even though it was made in an FFI PR.
Well,
that decision stands.
We said they're the same size. We didn't necessarily say they're the same ABI, right?
Well, it was decided that they have the same.
Okay.
Well, transmute doesn't just need the same size, but it also needs that like the pointers are represented the same way and all of that stuff. Which is hard to imagine how they couldn't with these types, but like.
Okay, whatever, it's fine. I mean, I think like a struct that wraps a reference and a reference are not the same from an ABI perspective when you pass them across function boundaries, but they are transmutable.
Yeah, transmute is weaker than same ABI, or maybe incomparable.
Anyway, you can assign it. I don't know. You can assign it to me to review, I guess, but need to do a little.
Yeah, I mean, my inclination is to merge. Robin, yeah, my inclination is to merge because this is probably code we want to support. Right. But then we should also document this for mutable references with an example, and I don't know where.
Yes.
And we should be aware that there's like some subtleties there.
I'm also inclined to merge, but I feel like this does fit this sort of runs into also that problem of like the const promotion in the sense of like, we want to make this decision and we want to go in this direction, but then we have to track all the other things that are involved. But yeah.
Yeah.
So adding some docs to the design library might be a good idea or something.
Yeah, I mean, at minimum, we can like certainly add a citation like PS, be aware of this bug that you will never understand.
Yeah, just explaining that issue takes pages.
Yeah, exactly. And then we can have plausible deniability when people fail to understand.
When Gonzalo's brought this up, I was like, oh my god, what the heck? I hate C. I hate C so much. Why can't anything make sense? Where does importing a function affect the way the function is compiled? Like, I mean, seriously, this is.
Yeah. Okay. I like the idea of being more conservative, but that's neither here nor there.
So Robin, or you, since you've been in this discussion, I will reassign it to you.
Seems okay.
I mean, I have a brief I have a brief summary at the end, Nico.
Yeah, I read it. We even have an FFI here of some kind. All right.
Yeah, but this is FCP for the ampersand mu t versus box t thing. This was not about the example. The example I think was added later, or I don't know. My interpretation is the example was not part of what was FCP. I might also be over-interpreting our process. I don't know.
Fine. Okay, sounds good. Put it to me. I'll take care of it. I'll figure something out.
Thanks.
Felix is not here. We got 5 more minutes. Check your boxes on the nested self receivers.
Scott, check your box.
FYI, we'll probably make an FCP merge for this, but it's sort of interesting. We want to make a tweak to how the async await lowering is done, or at least some of us do. And
so for these self-receivers, I asked some time ago, and some PR I was CC'd, and I asked about like precise documentation in terms of what the contract is that whatever things are involved have to actually satisfy to make all of that work. And with the output was like, yeah, we should do that. And this would only really become relevant once we have recursive self-receivers. So it seems like if they are coming, then what is the status of that documentation?
Why does that make it relevant? This is about the object.
Because it makes it more complicated. I don't know.
Are you referring to the DIN trait compatibility, or?
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's probably it's probably a good point that we probably don't have as much docs as we're probably creating language debt here, and we should consider that. The form of at least some form of documentation.
Yeah, some of this seems very subtle from a what's actually going on at runtime perspective, and like imposing contracts maybe on DREF or something, maybe not, I don't know. And I mean, so far, I'm not sure if there's any unsafe code interaction here, but once there is, I have no, I mean, there probably will be once there's user-defined self-receivers, because then you have to satisfy a certain contract, I guess, to make that sound.
There's no unsafe code. But...
Already right now, like whenever adds a new receiver, somebody has a new receiver libstd, I guess they have to be careful, like that the libstd types doesn't do stupid things in the DREF. So
and in this case, they aren't object safe.
Right. I think the major piece of subtlety had to do with like.
Oh yeah, that was about. Oh, so this
was about object safety.
That was about object safety. Yes. So this doesn't, the nested thing doesn't affect object safety at all.
I think that such methods are not object safe.
Okay. Yeah. Then that would probably be orthogonal.
Well, we could, but we haven't in this.
Oh yeah, no, that's composed. Okay, then never mind. Sorry for the noise. But yes, that was about object safety. That was about, yeah.
No, yes. Yeah, I think that's right. Nonetheless, I don't know how well it probably would be good to double check where this documentation is of like what was the current status of, like what were the constraints that were on our minds. I bet they're buried in some RFC discussion.
I'm guessing that Taylor is talking at lunch right now, but we can't hear it.
It's a good point. I've been wondering why Taylor's so quiet. Taylor, you are also muted officially.
Oops.
And there goes Taylor.
Maybe he got kicked out of the room.
All right. Oh. All right. I'll just put in here.
No, don't CC me. I've got too many emails.
I don't write anything.
No, it's okay. It was about object safety and mix it up. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's fine. How's that? I'll just write that to make myself feel better and then do nothing to follow up on it.
Yeah. And then once object safety comes around, I will make more noise about this if I realize it happening.
Okay. The only other thing I want to note as we leave in passing is that for those of you who weren't here, it's not yet known if we're going to do an edition in 2021 or what. But it would be useful to think about if we were to do it, what are the kinds of things we might try to change at that time. I think that would affect the decision.
Is there any way we can ever like make it illegal to use mem uninitialized from like some editions or something?
Yes.
That's an example of something I was going to put on the list. I don't know. I think it would be good to think about the things you would sort of want to do, and then we can figure out if they're not.
But it would make Petroshenko very sad.
Yes, yes.
One thing that will make it harder is
probably would.
We are trying. We are trying to help people rewrite their code. So that sounds like a complex rewrite, but
yes, this is not automatable. This is a conceptual rewrite in many cases. Yes.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Undecidable, sort of.
Probably. On the other hand, if it could work some of the time, that might be good enough. But
I mean, there's still this entire mess around sync and constants, which we made zero progress of over the last like a year or something.
Yeah, but AST Voracek is bye-bye now, so.
Yeah, so that helps. Which is also a backwards compatibility hazard. So might be an additional thing.
So I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll move these to HackMD or something, but we're at the end of the meeting. But I was going to say people can fill it in a little async.
I think a GitHub issue would be really great. I personally think that we don't need to do an edition for some specific year unless we have like, we should like collect enough things and then decide to do an edition, not like set a time for an edition and then do things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good with deprecations for most of these things. Sync might be an exception, but there we don't even know what anything could or should look like.
Yeah.
I mean, I implemented something a year ago and Creator complained loudly about like 20 crates or something.
It wasn't that loud.
Well,
right.
20 felt like a lot. But
for the time being, think about it. I also think it may not work. All right. Anything else? Let's call it. Talk to you all later.
See you.
bye.